The floor smelled of bleach and something metallic, the kind of smell that clung to your clothes, followed you home, and reminded you of work even when you tried to forget. Sam Carter pushed the mop forward slowly, the wet fibers dragging across the marble tiles like a whisper. Midnight shifts had their own rhythm. The building was quiet, the city outside muffled behind layers of glass and steel. The skyscraper's lobby stretched upward like a cathedral, columns polished to a mirror sheen, lights humming faintly overhead. It should have been peaceful. But tonight, it wasn't. Because standing in the middle of that echoing lobby, red-faced, jaw tight, was Ryan Whitmore. The CEO's son. The kid's voice cut through the stillness, sharp and unsteady. "You don't talk to me like that," Ryan spat, his words bouncing off marble and glass. His expensive blazer was half unbuttoned, tie loosened, hair messy like he'd been drinking or fighting or both. His fists clenched and unclenched at his sides. Sam stayed silent. He'd been here before, different faces, same arrogance. He leaned on the mop handle, eyes steady, body still. Ryan's breath came heavy. He stepped forward, the sound of his leather shoes cracking against the wet floor. "You hear me, old man?" he snapped. "Do you know who I am?" For a second, the lobby seemed to shrink, every light buzzing louder, every shadow deepening. Sam didn't move. His silence was a choice. A deliberate weight dropped in the middle of Ryan's storm. And that silence. It enraged him. Ryan's hand shot out, grabbed the mop handle, and yanked it. The sudden force nearly tore it from Sam's grip, the wet head smacking against the polished floor with a dull slap. "Say something," Ryan barked. His face hovered inches from Sam's, breath sour, eyes wild. Sam finally spoke, his voice low, rough. "Calm? You should step back." The words weren't loud, but in the quiet of the lobby they felt like thunder. Ryan froze, just for a heartbeat. Something in the janitor's tone, controlled, unwavering, cracked through his drunken bravado. But then pride rushed in, louder than reason. He sneered, pushing harder against the mop handle. "You don't tell me what to do," Ryan hissed. "Not you. You clean up after people like me." The words hit the air like venom. Sam's knuckles whitened around the mop. And then time stopped. The scene froze right there, the spoiled air sneering down, the janitor holding steady, two men locked in a silent war of wills beneath the cold glow of corporate chandeliers. The kind of moment where everything could break, and nothing would ever be the same. Silence. Tension stretched thin. Then, like film burning backward, the world rewound. The sound of Ryan's voice dissolved into echoes, sucked back into silence. His sneer faded, his hand loosened, and the lobby emptied out. The mop returned to its bucket. The lights dimmed, and the night peeled away, layer by layer, until all that was left was memory. Because to understand how a janitor could stare down the CEO's son, to understand why that quiet man carried so much weight in his voice, we have to go back. Back to the beginning. Sam Carter wasn't born into marble lobbies or corner offices. He came from cracked sidewalks and kitchens that smelled of burnt toast. He came from a part of the city where kids learned early that you don't waste food and you don't waste chances. He'd been a fighter once, not in rings with gloves and crowds, but in life, fighting for rent, fighting to keep the lights on, fighting for his family. But by the time he found himself pushing a mop through corporate hallways, life had already broken him in places no one could see. His wife gone, his son grown and distant, nights long and quiet, and Ryan Whitmore. Ryan was the opposite. Born with a silver spoon, raised on private tutors and summer homes. His name carried weight, not because of who he was, but because of who his father was, Richard Whitmore, the empire builder, the man whose shadow stretched across the skyline itself. Ryan lived in that shadow, and he hated it. The world saw him as privilege wrapped in arrogance. But inside was a boy who'd never been allowed to fail, who drowned his insecurities in whiskey and reckless nights, who snapped at anyone who reminded him of how little control he truly had. Two men from opposite worlds. One stripped bare by hardship, the other bloated by excess. And yet, fate had drawn them into the same midnight lobby. The sound of that night, the argument, the shove, the tension, echoed louder because of the silence that came before. For hours, Sam had worked alone, every swipe of the mop like meditation. The stillness had been his only companion. Then Ryan had stumbled in from the street, jacket crooked, eyes bloodshot. He'd been arguing on the phone, angry, desperate, before slamming it shut and spotting the janitor across the lobby. And that's when it began. What neither of them knew was that tonight would change everything, that this confrontation wasn't just about pride or disrespect. It was about wounds both men carried, wounds that hadn't healed. But in that frozen moment, two figures locked in defiance. None of that mattered. Yet what mattered was the weight of silence, the way Sam's gaze didn't flinch, the way Ryan's hand trembled, just slightly, on the mop handle. The night hadn't broken yet, but it would. And when it did, the lesson Ryan Whitmore was about to learn would follow him for the rest of his life. The marble lobby holds its breath. The janitor's warning lingers in the air, and the spoiled heir doesn't know yet, doesn't realize that he's already crossed into a story he cannot control. The city at dawn was a different creature. Grey lights slid down the high-rises, softening their sharp edges, washing glass and steel in a muted glow. Traffic hadn't yet hit full roar. The streets breathed in a slower rhythm, like lungs filling before the day's chaos. Sam Carter knew these hours well. He had walked them for decades, long before the marble lobbies and skyscraper floors. Back then, his mornings began in a cramped kitchen with linoleum peeling at the edges and a coffee pot that sputtered like it was dying. He remembered the way his wife, Linda, would hum over the stove, always the same tune, some old folk song from her childhood. She'd plate scrambled eggs for their boy, Daniel, who'd be rubbing sleep from his eyes, too small yet for the heavy backpack he'd later come to shoulder. Those mornings felt ordinary at the time, forgettable, and yet they were the most precious hours of Sam's life. Sam had been a mechanic once, not the kind in clean uniforms with glossy service bays, but the kind who worked in back-alley shops where oil stained your fingernails black no matter how much soap you used. He was good with his hands, good with engines. People trusted him, but then the factory downsized. Layoffs came in waves and his small shop couldn't keep up. One contract gone, then another. Debt piled like rust. And when Linda got sick, cancer, cruel and fast, whatever money he'd managed to save drained out in hospital bills. By the time she was gone, the shop was gone too. Daniel was 16, angry, slipping into silence that Sam didn't know how to break. And Sam, he took the first job that would keep them afloat, custodian, janitor, cleaner of floors others dirtied. People saw a man in overalls with a mop and assumed that was all he was. They didn't know the years behind those tired eyes. They didn't know the weight he carried in his silence. On the other side of the city, Ryan Whitmore's mornings were gilded. He grew up in a penthouse where the sunrise didn't seep through cracks in curtains, but blazed across floor-to-ceiling windows. Breakfast came plated in silver, prepared by staff who knew his preferences better than he did. His mother dabbed at her lipstick with a napkin. His father scanned stock reports over coffee, and Ryan sat there, lost in the middle. Richard Whitmore wasn't cruel in the obvious ways. He didn't shout. He didn't strike. His cruelty was sharper than that, absence dressed as presence. Richard gave his son every advantage, but no real attention. He spoke to Ryan in metrics, expectations, legacies. "Whitmore men don't fail," he'd say, never looking up from his papers. Ryan would nod, hiding the way his chest knotted at the words. At school, teachers bent rules for him, classmates orbited him, but he felt it, always felt it, that none of it was earned. That everything about his life was borrowed shine from his father's empire. And when he acted out, when he snapped at staff, or blew money recklessly, or staggered home drunk, Richard's disappointment was quieter than anger, but sharper. A glance, a silence, a single sentence. "You embarrass this family." Those words cut deeper than any scream, so Ryan built armor. Sarcasm, arrogance, a sneer he wore like a shield. He drank to fill the hollow places. He picked fights to feel in control, even if it was fleeting. And every time he looked in the mirror, he wondered if he'd ever be more than a shadow of his father. It was inevitable their worlds would collide. Sam, invisible in the halls of Whitmore Tower, polishing brass fixtures and scrubbing away footprints no one else noticed. Ryan, heir to the building itself, strutting through those same halls without ever seeing the man behind the mop. For months, maybe years, they passed each other without truly colliding. A nod here, a muttered insult there. Sam kept his head down. Ryan barely registered him until that night. The night Ryan stumbled in with whiskey still warm in his blood. The night Sam's silence met his rage. The night marble. Floors became a battlefield. Sam often thought about silence. How people misunderstood it. To most, silence meant weakness, submission. But to Sam, silence was strength. Silence was control. He'd learned that when Daniel was a boy, fists balled, shouting in grief after his mother's death. Sam never shouted back. He'd sit there, quiet, letting his son's fury burn itself out. "Why don't you say something?" Daniel would scream, and Sam would answer softly, "Because not every fire needs more fuel." But Daniel had drifted anyway. He left home at 18, chasing freedom, chasing distance. Calls became rare, then stopped altogether, and the silence between father and son became heavier than words could carry. Maybe that's why Sam stayed on night shifts. Alone, unseen, unbothered, his world narrowed to mop buckets and echoing lobbies. In silence, he could breathe. Ryan, on the other hand, feared silence. It was in silence that his father's judgment weighed the heaviest. In silence, he saw his own reflection. Hollow, unworthy, small. So he filled the air with noise, laughter too loud, insults too sharp, parties too wild. Anything to drown out the quiet. And that's why Ryan had snapped when Sam met his tantrum with stillness. Why the janitor's calm warning? You should step back, hit harder than any insult. Because silence was the one thing Ryan couldn't fight. If you strip away the suits, the titles, the mop handles, what stood in that lobby was simple. A man who had lost everything, but still carried dignity, and a boy who had everything, but lived like he had nothing. The world thought they had nothing in common, but both carried wounds carved by fathers and sons. That night was a collision waiting to happen. The marble lobby was just the stage. The lesson, the one Ryan would never forget, was already written in the shadows of their pasts. They just didn't know yet. The marble floor was still damp, a thin sheen of water catching the light from the chandeliers above. Ryan's shoes squeaked as he shifted his stance, still gripping the mop like it was some kind of weapon. Sam didn't move. His frame was wiry, his posture slightly bent from years of labor, but his presence filled the space in ways Ryan didn't expect. The older man's calmness wasn't passive, it was deliberate, and that made it more dangerous. Ryan's jaw twitched. He yanked the mop once more, trying to rip it free from Sam's hands. But the janitor's grip didn't budge. His knuckles were pale, the veins in his forearm taut under worn skin. Let go, Ryan demanded, his voice breaking slightly. Sam's reply was steady, each word carved slow. Not until you stop acting like a child. The words landed heavier than Ryan expected. His mouth opened, ready to retort, but no insult came quick enough. For a heartbeat, he looked less like the heir to Whitmore Enterprises and more like the boy he still was inside, lost, angry, brittle. He masked it fast, sneering, leaning in close. "You think you're better than me," he hissed. "You're nothing. You clean floors. You're invisible." Sam tilted his head, eyes narrowing. "If I'm invisible, why are you so desperate to prove you can see me?" The silence that followed wasn't quiet. It buzzed. Ryan's face flushed, his breath coming sharp. Somewhere deep inside he felt the sting of truth, but pride shoved it down. "You don't get to talk to me like that," Ryan barked. His hand shoved the mop handle forward, slamming it into Sam's chest. The force made the janitor stumble back a step, the wooden shaft clattering against the bucket. Water sloshed, spilling across the marble, spreading like a dark stain. Sam steadied himself, one palm against the bucket, the other gripping the mop tight. He looked up at Ryan, not with anger, not with fear, but with something far worse for Ryan to face. Disappointment. "Your father ever teach you respect?" Sam asked quietly. The words hit Ryan harder than the mop ever could. He recoiled, jaw tightening, a flicker of something raw flashing across his face. "My father," Ryan started, but his throat closed around the words. His hands curled into fists. Sam didn't press. He didn't need to. The question lingered in the air like smoke. Ryan turned away abruptly, pacing across the wet floor, running a hand through his hair. His movements were frantic, restless, as if the stillness of the lobby pressed too heavy on his chest. "You think you know me," he muttered, voice low, almost to himself. "You don't know anything." Sam leaned the mop back into the bucket and wiped his damp hands on his overalls. His movements were slow, measured, like a man giving the other space to unravel. "Then tell me," Sam said softly. Ryan stopped pacing. He looked over his shoulder, eyes glassy with a mix of alcohol and something deeper. Confusion. Pain. "What?" "Tell me who you are," Sam repeated. Ryan's laugh was sharp, bitter. "Who I am? I'm Ryan Whitmore." The name should be enough, but even as he said it, his voice cracked. The name didn't sound like armor anymore. It sounded like a chain. Sam watched him, silent again, letting the young man hear his own echo. Ryan's fists loosened. His chest rose and fell in uneven breaths. He pressed his palms to his face, dragging them down slowly as if trying to scrape the weight off. "I don't even know why I'm here," he admitted, voice raw. "I was at a bar then." "I don't know, I just ended up here," his words slurred less now. The adrenaline was flushing the liquor from his veins, leaving only the truth beneath. Sam stepped closer, careful, the way one might approach a wounded animal. He kept his tone calm, steady. "You came here because you wanted someone to see you." "Not your name." "Not your father's shadow. You." Ryan's head snapped up, eyes wide. For a moment he looked terrified, like someone had read a secret he'd buried too deep. "Shut up," Ryan whispered. His voice trembled. "You don't know anything about me." Sam held his gaze. "I know what it looks like when someone's drowning." The air between them thickened. Outside the lobby's glass doors, the city pulsed with neon, but inside, time seemed to stall. Ryan's breathing grew ragged. He turned again, pacing, muttering under his breath. "This is ridiculous. Talking to a janitor. I don't need this." But he didn't leave. Something kept him there. Maybe it was the way Sam's voice carried weight without shouting. Maybe it was the fact that for once, someone wasn't intimidated by his last name. Or maybe it was because Sam had asked the one question no one else had. "Who are you?" Ryan sank into one of the lobby chairs, elbows on his knees, head in his hands. His expensive blazer sagged around him, the fabric wrinkled, the threads of privilege unraveling in the dim light. Sam stood for a moment, then slowly lowered himself into the chair opposite. He set the mop aside. For the first time that night, the lobby wasn't a battlefield. It was something else, a confessional. Ryan's voice broke the silence, barely above a whisper. "You don't get it."
My father, then he doesn't see me. He sees what I'm supposed to be. Every move I make, every mistake, it's all measured against him.
And no matter what I do, it's never enough. Sam's eyes softened, though his face stayed stern. He leaned forward, resting his forearms on his knees. "I had a son," he said quietly. "Still do, but I lost him anyway."
Not to death.
To distance, to silence. You push hard enough, ignore what matters long enough. One day they're gone.
And you don't get them back. Ryan lifted his head, eyes bloodshot, meeting Sam's for the first time without arrogance.
What happened? Sam looked past him, into the dim space of memory. Life, mistakes, pride, things I can't take back.
I thought staying quiet would protect him.
Turns out it just pushed him further away. The lobby was silent again, but this silence was different. It wasn't heavy with tension, it was heavy with truth. Ryan swallowed hard, his throat working around words he didn't know how to say. For the first time in years, maybe ever, he felt like someone wasn't looking at his last name, but at him, and it terrified him. The mop water had pooled across the marble, spreading wider as the minutes passed. It reflected the chandelier above,
Warped and trembling. It looked strangely
like the night itself, fragile, unsteady, waiting for something to break it open. And it would, because this was only the beginning. The hum of the chandeliers filled the silence between them. Ryan leaned back in the lobby chair, his hands still pressed to his face, while Sam sat steady, gaze fixed on a point somewhere far away. When Sam spoke again, his voice wasn't sharp, it was low, heavy, like it carried years instead of words. "My son's name is Daniel." Ryan lowered his hands, blinking at him. Sam didn't look back. "He was 16 when his mother died," Sam continued. 16 is too young to know that kind of loss. Too young to see tubes and monitors where warmth used to be. But there he was, staring at her hospital bed, and there I was, useless. Sam's eyes closed for a moment, as if bracing himself against memory. He turned all that pain into anger.
At the world, at me. He thought I wasn't doing enough to save her.
Thought I'd given up. And maybe he wasn't wrong. Ryan shifted in his seat. The rawness in Sam's words felt uncomfortably close to something in himself. "I tried to talk," Sam said, shaking his head slightly. "But everything I said just sounded empty. So I stayed quiet, thinking silence would keep me from saying the wrong thing. But silence can cut deeper than words." His voice caught for just a moment before he steadied it. One night, he packed a bag.
Walked out. Told me he was done with me.
And I let him go. Told myself he needed space, that he'd come back when he was ready. But he never did. The lobby lights gleamed off the marble, but Sam's eyes stayed shadowed. Ryan swallowed, throat dry. He wanted to say something, anything, but the words stuck. For once, he didn't have a quip, didn't have a mask. Instead, his own memories rose up like ghosts. He was 10 years old again, standing in his father's office. The space was vast. Leather chairs, bookshelves reaching the ceiling, a desk the size of a small car. He remembered clutching a sheet of paper in his hand, the ink smudged where his fingers had gripped too tight. It was a drawing, a child's sketch, wobbly lines, too many colors. Him and his father at a baseball game. 2 stick figures smiling, arms raised in the stands. "Dad," he'd said, holding it up like a trophy. "I drew this for you." Richard Whitmore had looked up briefly from his paperwork, adjusted his glasses, and nodded. "Very nice, son. Now go show your mother," and that was it.
No smile, no pat on the head.
No space on the wall for the drawing. Just a nod before his eyes slid back to numbers on a page. Ryan had walked out, fists clenched around the paper, cheeks hot. He remembered crumpling it later, tossing it in the trash, telling himself it was stupid anyway. But deep down, he hadn't wanted praise for the drawing. He just wanted his father to look at him.
Really look at him. In the lobby, Ryan rubbed at his face, trying to push the memory back.
He let out a bitter laugh. "You think silence cuts deep?" he said, voice low.
Try growing up in a house where silence is the only language that matters. Sam's eyes lifted to him, calm but sharp.
"So you make noise, drink, fight, anything to drown it out?" Ryan's head snapped toward him. "Don't act like you know me." Sam didn't flinch.
I don't have to know you.
"I've seen it before. Men who can't live with what they feel try to bury it under noise." Ryan's hands curled into fists again, but this time the anger wasn't sharp. It was tired. "You don't get it," he muttered. "Every time I walk into a room, I'm not me."
I'm Richard Whitmore's son. People don't see Ryan, they see the name.
The money, the power.
And I hate it. I hate that I can't just be me without wondering if I'd still matter. His voice cracked on the last word.
He turned his face away quickly, ashamed of the tremor. Sam leaned back in his chair, studying him. His silence wasn't judgment, it was space. Finally, he said, "You ever tried earning respect instead of demanding it?" Ryan's head jerked toward him, eyes blazing.
That's easy for you to say.
"You don't know what it's like to live under a name like mine." Sam's voice was quiet, but it carried steel. "No, but I know what it's like to lose a name you've built with your own hand." Ryan blinked, thrown. "I had a shop," Sam continued. "Carter Auto Repair. Spent 20 years building it.
My name meant something. People came because they trusted me.
And when it all fell apart, when the debts piled up and the lights went dark, no one cared about my name anymore. It was just me, a man with nothing but his hands.
And even then I still had to show up.
Still had to earn respect by how I carried myself, not by what I was called.
By what I did." The words hung heavy between them.
Ryan felt them land like stones in his chest. For the first time in years, he wasn't thinking about how to look strong. He was thinking about how weak he actually felt. And somehow, sitting across from a janitor, he felt less alone in it. The silence stretched long, but it wasn't empty. It was alive, layered with memory and hurt, and something almost like understanding. Ryan finally broke it, his voice softer now. "You ever wish you could go back?"
Say the things you didn't say?
Sam's eyes darkened.
Every day, Ryan's throat tightened.
He thought of the crumpled drawing, of his father's glance, of every moment he'd swallowed words he wanted to scream. Sam thought of Daniel, his son's backpack, vanishing through the doorway, his silence on the other end of unanswered calls, 2 different lives but the same wound. Fathers and sons, separated by pride and silence, and in that marble lobby, under the glow of chandeliers, those wounds finally bled in the open. But the night wasn't finished with them, because lessons don't end with shared pain. They sharpen into choices, and the choice both men would face before the night was done would demand more than honesty. It would demand courage. The lobby air had grown heavy, as if the building itself leaned in to listen. Sam's words still echoed, about respect, about choices, about losing and earning. And Ryan sat slouched in the leather chair, chest rising in uneven bursts, his mind a battlefield of shame.
Anger, and something he couldn't name. It was too much to feel exposed by a janitor, too
much to admit the truth in those words, too much to sit. Still, while his own reflection cracked open, he shot to his feet. The chair legs screeched against the marble, sharp as a blade. "You think you're teaching me something?"
Ryan snapped.
His voice ricocheted across the tall lobby. "You think because you've had a hard life, you get to stand there and act like some wise old man?" Sam didn't move. He remained seated, hands clasped, gaze level. Ryan's voice grew louder, wild with heat. "You're nothing."
You hear me? Nothing.
A failure who pushes a mop because he couldn't make anything better of himself. The words, hung like shattered glass in the air. Even Ryan's chest tightened when he heard them out loud, but pride wouldn't let him stop. Sam finally rose from his chair. Slow, measured. He was taller than Ryan expected, not by much, but enough that when he stood close, Ryan felt the difference. Sam's voice came low. Steady? You think the size of a paycheck decides who a man is? You think respect comes with a title on a door? Let me tell you something, son. Ryan flinched at the word son, but Sam pressed on. I've cleaned vomit off these floors after men in suits stumbled out of meetings too drunk to stand. I've picked up broken glass from their fights.
I've seen secretaries with more dignity than CEOs.
You think money makes you more?
It just makes your mistakes louder. Ryan's face burned.
He shoved Sam in the chest, hard. Sam staggered a step back, but his feet held firm.
His arms didn't rise.
His fists didn't clench. He simply straightened, meeting Ryan's glare without blinking. You want to hit me?
Sam asked.
His voice was calm, almost gentle. Go ahead. Ryan froze, caught off guard. His fists hovered mid-air, trembling. Sam took a small step closer. Hit me if it makes you feel bigger. Hit me if you think that'll prove something. But when you're done, you'll still be you.
And I'll still be me. And nothing about that punch will change the truth staring back at you. The tremor in Ryan's fists grew.
His breathing turned ragged, a storm trapped in his chest. For a moment it seemed he might swing, might break the fragile silence with violence. But he didn't. He couldn't. Instead, his fists dropped to his sides with a hollow slap. He turned away, pacing, his voice breaking. Why are you doing this? He demanded. Why won't you just shut up? Sam's reply was quiet. Because no one else has told you the truth. Ryan stopped cold. His back was to Sam, but his shoulders rose and fell like waves crashing. The truth, that single word, cut deeper than insults ever could. He spun back around, eyes wet with something he refused to name. You don't know me, he said again, weaker this time. You don't know what it's like to live every damn day under someone else's shadow. Sam stepped forward. His voice didn't rise, but each word carried weight. You're right.
I don't know your shadow.
But I know what it's like to fail the people who look to you. I know what it's like to lose the only thing that mattered because I was too proud, too stubborn, too silent. You think your father doesn't see you? My son doesn't even call me.
That's worse than shadows. It's emptiness. Ryan's chest heaved.
His voice dropped to a whisper. Then why the hell do you care about me? Sam's answer came without pause. Because maybe if someone had cared enough to tell me the truth when I was your age,
I wouldn't have lost him. The words silenced the lobby more completely than any outburst could.
Ryan stared at him, breath caught, every muscle tight as if bracing for impact. But the impact didn't come from fists. It came from the raw, undeniable honesty standing in front of him. Sam didn't see a spoiled heir. He saw a young man drowning in expectations the same way Daniel had drowned in grief. And maybe, just maybe, helping Ryan face himself was a way to make peace with the son he'd lost to silence. Ryan staggered back a step, shaking his head.
His voice broke when he spoke. You can't fix me. You're not my father. Sam's eyes softened, though his jaw stayed tight. No, I'm not.
But right now, I'm the only one willing to stand here and see you. And whether you like it or not, you need that. Ryan's face crumpled, caught between fury and grief. He turned away again, gripping the back of the chair like he needed it to hold him upright. Sam let him. He didn't push further. He simply stood, waiting, his silence no longer cold but patient. The lobby clock ticked above them, steady and loud. Midnight stretched deeper into early morning. Ryan finally sank back into the chair, burying his face in his hands. His voice was muffled, raw. I don't know who I am without him. Without his name. Sam lowered himself into the chair across from him. He leaned forward, elbows on his knees.
Voice steady as stone. Then maybe it's time you find out. Ryan lifted his head, eyes bloodshot, staring at him like he'd spoken a foreign language. And how the hell am I supposed to do that?
Sam didn't answer right away. He let the question breathe, let Ryan sit with it. Then he said, by learning to respect yourself first.
And you start small.
With choices. Tonight you've got one. You can walk out that door, keep living like you have been.
Or you can stay.
Face the parts of yourself you've been running from.
Only one of those choices leads to something better. Ryan swallowed hard.
His throat clicked in the silence. For the first time, he didn't feel like the one in control, not of the lobby, not of the conversation, not even of himself. And yet, strangely, it didn't feel like weakness. It felt like possibility. Terrifying, raw possibility. The mop water had dried in streaks across the marble now, leaving faint stains that glimmered under the chandeliers. The floor would need cleaning again, but that could wait. Because in that lobby, under those cold lights, something more important was being scrubbed clean. Not marble, not brass, but pride, layer by layer, scrape by scrape, stripped down until what was left wasn't shadow or name, just truth. And truth, once spoken, could never be mopped away. The marble floor seemed colder now. Ryan sat hunched forward, elbows on his knees, staring at the lines in the stone as if they might rearrange themselves into answers. His body looked smaller, like the weight pressing on him had finally bent his shoulders inward. Sam didn't speak. He knew silence had its own kind of power, the kind that gave words space to echo, the kind that let a man hear himself for the first time. Minutes passed in that stillness, the hum of the vending machine in the corner, the tick of the lobby clock, a faint rattle of wind against the tall glass doors. Finally, Ryan broke it. His voice rasped, raw. I hate him. Sam's head tilted, but he didn't rush him. Ryan's jaw clenched, his eyes still locked on the floor. I hate my father.
Not just because he's strict or cold or never says he's proud. I hate him because he made me believe the only thing I'm worth is being his son.
The CEO's kid.
His legacy. The words spilled out faster now, like a dam breaking. Do you know what that does to you? Every time I walk into a room, people don't see me. They see him, his name, his money,
his power. And I play along because if I don't, if I try to be anything else, I'm nothing, invisible, replaceable. His voice cracked. He pressed the heels of his palms into his eyes, trying to stem the tears. I don't even know what I like, what I'm good at.
I've never been allowed to find out.
Because he's already decided who I'm supposed to be. Sam let the confession hang in the air.
It was a heavy truth, but it wasn't unfamiliar.
It rang with an ache he knew all too well. Ryan finally looked up. His eyes glistened, wet with unfallen tears, but there was fire there too. And you stand there telling me I need to respect myself?
How? Respect what? I don't even know who the hell I am. Sam leaned back in his chair.
He took a long, slow breath, the kind that carried memories on its current. When he spoke, his voice was lower than before. Rougher. You think you're the only one who's felt that way? Ryan's eyes narrowed. What are you talking about? Sam's gaze drifted past him, far beyond the lobby walls, as if watching ghosts walk through a memory. My son. Daniel, he was about your age when he stopped looking me in the eye.
I thought it was just a phase. Teenage stubbornness, you know?
But no, he was tired of me. Tired of watching me come home late. Tired of smelling cleaning chemicals on my clothes.
Tired of the fact that his father was the janitor when every other kid's dad wore a suit. Sam's voice caught, and for the first time,
Ryan saw something shift in him, an edge of pain buried under years of silence. I told myself I was working for him.
Every late shift, every scrubbed toilet, every aching back.
I told myself it was for Daniel, but he didn't see it that way. He saw absence. He saw shame. He saw a man who couldn't be bothered to show up when it mattered. Ryan swallowed hard, silent. Sam's eyes met his again, dark with something unspoken. You say you hate your father for making you live in his shadow. My son hated me for not being there at all. He stopped talking to me, stopped coming home, stopped needing me.
And I let him, because I thought I had time to fix it later. The air between them thickened.
Ryan's chest tightened as if the story pressed against his own ribs. What happened? He asked, barely above a whisper. Sam's jaw worked. He looked down at his hands, calloused and scarred from years of work. He left.
Packed his bags one night. Said he couldn't stand the smell of bleach anymore. I thought he'd be back in a week, a month. Kids run, they come home, right?
But Daniel didn't. Months turned into years.
And then Sam's voice broke.
He covered his mouth with his hand, breathing hard.
It took him a long moment before he could finish. Then the call came.
Not from him. From the police, accident, late night. He'd been drinking.
Car didn't make the turn. The words shattered the silence like glass.
Ryan felt them strike deep, hollowing out the air in his lungs. Sam leaned back, staring up at the ceiling as if speaking to it instead of the boy in front of him. You asked me why I care about you.
That's why.
Because every time I see you throwing yourself against walls your father built.
I see Daniel. And I can't lose him twice. Ryan's breath hitched.
He pressed his hand against his mouth, fighting back the sob rising in his throat. The image of Sam, stoic, steady Sam, sitting there with grief carved into his voice, cracked something wide open in him. For the first time all night, Ryan's anger drained. What replaced it wasn't shame or defiance. It was sorrow. Pure, unshielded sorrow, he whispered, almost to himself. I didn't know. Sam's eyes softened. You weren't supposed to, but now you do. Ryan shook his head, covering his face again. His voice trembled. I don't want to end up like that.
I don't want to hate him forever.
But I don't know how to stop. Sam leaned forward, his elbows on his knees, his voice steady, but not unkind. Then start small. Don't think about fixing the whole thing tonight. Just take one step, one truth, one choice. That's all it takes to start changing the ending. Ryan dropped his hands, his face streaked with tears he no longer tried to hide. What if it's too late? Sam shook his head. It's never too late until the phone call comes. Trust me, the weight of that line hung heavy. Ryan sat with it, feeling its edges, its warning, its possibility. The lobby lights hummed overhead. Outside, dawn still felt far away. But inside, something fragile had shifted. Ryan no longer looked like the boy who had stormed into the building, demanding attention, spitting venom. He looked like someone stripped down to the bone. Someone ready, finally, to be seen. Sam let him sit in that new skin. He knew the hardest part wasn't speaking, it was hearing yourself after the words had left. Time slid by unnoticed. The vending machine hummed. The clock ticked. Ryan wiped at his eyes, sniffled, then gave a half laugh that cracked in the middle. God.
I must look pathetic. Sam leaned back, a ghost of a smile tugging at his mouth. No, you look human. Ryan glanced at him, surprised.
The word lingered, gentle but firm. Human. Not a shadow, not a legacy, not a name. For the first time, Ryan believed it. The lobby had grown quieter, as if the building itself held its breath. Ryan leaned back in the chair, face raw from tears, his hands clasped tight like he was holding himself together. He looked younger now, less the arrogant air, more the boy who'd been hiding inside him all along. Sam studied him, silent. He knew the moment after a storm was delicate. Push too hard, and the walls went back up. Leave too much silence, and the boy would retreat into shame. Ryan spoke first.
His voice came small, unguarded. So,
what now? Sam tilted his head. What do you mean? Ryan lifted his hands helplessly. I mean, what do I do? You tell me to take a step, to make a choice, but toward what? Toward who? If I can't keep living like this, and I don't want to end up hating him forever, then what's the answer? Sam leaned forward, elbows resting on his knees. His eyes locked onto Ryan's with steady weight. The answer isn't mine to give. It's yours to find, Ryan blinked.
That's not fair. No, Sam said. It isn't, but it's the truth. Ryan slumped back, frustrated.
You've been talking all night about choices, about facing myself. Fine, but I don't even know what that looks like.
I've spent my whole damn life doing what he expects. How am I supposed to just...
Break that. Walk up to him and say, "Hey, Dad, I'm not your perfect heir, I'm just me." Sam's face softened, but his voice stayed firm. Maybe that's exactly what you need to say. Ryan stared at him, stunned.
You think he'd listen?
Sam shrugged slightly. Doesn't matter if he listens. What matters is that you speak, that you claim your own voice even if it shakes.
'Cause until you do, you're just living as an echo of him. And echoes fade. The words hit Ryan like a blow.
He sat forward, rubbing his temples, his voice rising with a mix of fear and anger. You don't get it?
If I defy him, I lose everything.
The house, the money, the safety.
I've never worked a day in my life. What the hell am I supposed to do if he cuts me off?
Sam's reply was steady. Then you start at the bottom.
Like the rest of us, Ryan looked up sharply.
Easy for you to say.
You've already built your life.
You've already accepted who you are. Sam's jaw tightened. For a long moment he said nothing. Then slowly he spoke. You think I accepted this? You think I dreamed of scrubbing toilets when I was your age?
No, I wanted to be a mechanic.
Open my own shop. Fix cars, build engines, maybe even race one day. But life doesn't always care about dreams. My father got sick, bills piled up, and I took the first job I could.
And then the next. And suddenly 10 years had gone by, 20. My dream wasn't taken, it was forgotten.
'Cause I let it be, Ryan's eyes softened. You regret it. Sam nodded once. Every day, not because of the work.
Because of what it cost.
My son grew up watching a man who'd already surrendered. That's what he hated most. Not the bleach, not the mop. The surrender, the words sank deep. Ryan's throat tightened. For the first time he saw Sam not as the stoic janitor, not even as the grieving father, but as a man who had carried his own chains, who bore the weight of choices made and unmade. Ryan whispered, So you're saying if I keep living like this,
I'll end up the same? Sam didn't answer right away.
He let the silence stretch, let Ryan feel it. Then he said, I'm saying the only thing worse than living in someone else's shadow is never daring to step out of it. Ryan's chest rose and fell in uneven waves. He wanted to argue, to fight, but the words stuck in his throat. Sam leaned closer. His voice dropped, low and unshakable. You asked me what to do next. Here it is. Face him. Not tomorrow. Not someday. Tonight. Tell him the truth you've been running from.
That's your step, Ryan's stomach twisted.
His eyes darted toward the dark hallway that led to the executive suites. He imagined his father there, cold, unflinching, a man carved from granite. His voice faltered. I can't. Sam shook his head. You can. You just don't want to. Fear will tell you that you're not ready. But the truth is, you'll never feel ready.
You just do it anyway. Ryan's hands clenched into fists on his knees.
He breathed hard, shaking his head. He'll destroy me. Sam's voice was calm, steady as stone. No, he'll test you.
He'll push you.
He'll try to crush you under his name. But if you can stand there, bare and honest, and still refuse to break, you won't just be his son anymore. You'll be your own man. Ryan's vision blurred with hot tears. His chest heaved, the weight of choice pressing down harder than any expectation ever had. He whispered, What if I lose him? Sam's eyes softened, the grief of Daniel flickering there. Then at least you'll lose him as yourself.
Not as his echo. The line struck deep, pulling something raw and fragile to the surface.
Ryan's body trembled, caught between fear and the smallest flicker of courage. For a long moment, he didn't move. He sat there, heart pounding, staring at the hallway that might as well have been a battlefield. Then, slowly, he rose to his feet. His legs shook, but he stood tall, taller than he had all night. Sam didn't smile. He didn't cheer. He simply nodded once, as if to say, "This is the step." Ryan wiped his face with the back of his sleeve. His voice was thin but steady. "If I go in there—"
I don't come back the same, do I?
Sam shook his head. "No, you come back better, or not at all."
That's the risk. Ryan's jaw tightened.
He looked toward the hallway again, fear and determination warring in his eyes. The lobby clock ticked louder, each second like a drumbeat marching him forward. He took a step.
Then another.
His footsteps echoed against the marble, carrying him toward the place he'd avoided his whole life, his father's shadow. Sam watched him go, the faintest trace of something in his eyes. Pride, fear, maybe hope. The boy was walking into fire, but sometimes only fire could forge a man. The hallway stretched ahead like a tunnel carved from glass and silence. Ryan's footsteps echoed too loudly in his ears. Each one felt like a challenge, each one like it might splinter beneath him. The executive wing was mostly dark, but a strip of light burned under one door, the office at the very end. His father's office? Ryan stopped halfway down the hall. His palms were slick, his chest hammering. Every instinct screamed at him to turn back, to retreat into the safety of marble floors and Sam's quiet presence. But Sam's words lingered in his mind. "You'll never feel ready. You just do it anyway." Ryan swallowed hard and forced himself forward. When he reached the end, he stood before the tall wooden door. He lifted his hand to knock and froze. His heart pounded against his ribs, begging for escape. His throat felt tight, like speaking would tear something inside, but he knocked. Once, twice. A low, commanding voice answered from within. "Come in." Ryan's hand trembled on the handle. He pushed it open. The office was a cathedral of power. Floor-to-ceiling windows framed the city skyline, lights twinkling against the dark. A massive desk sat at the center, polished wood gleaming under the glow of a single brass lamp. Behind it, in a high-backed chair, sat Edward Harland, the CEO, the father. He looked up from a stack of papers, brow furrowing when he saw his son. "Ryan?" His voice was deep, clipped. "What are you doing here at this hour?" Ryan stepped inside, closing the door behind him. His legs felt unsteady, but he forced himself upright. "I needed to talk to you." Edward leaned back, setting his pen down. His eyes, sharp, assessing, fixed on him. "At midnight. Couldn't this wait until morning?" Ryan shook his head. His voice cracked.
"No, it can't." Edward's brow tightened, but he gestured for him to continue. "All right."
"Say what you came to say." Ryan's mouth went dry. He could feel the words piling in his chest, tangled and heavy. He tried to start, but the weight of his father's gaze froze him. Edward sighed. "If this is about the board meeting you skipped, we'll discuss it tomorrow."
"I don't have time for another excuse tonight." Ryan's fists clenched at his sides.
His voice broke free, sharp, with desperation. "It's not about the meeting!"
"It's about me."
The words rang out louder than he meant, bouncing off the office walls. Edward blinked, caught off guard by the sudden force. Ryan's chest heaved.
He took a shaky step closer. "All my life!"
"I've been trying to be what you want. The son you could show off. The heir you could hand everything to."
"But it's killing me. I don't even know who I am anymore." Edward's expression hardened. His voice cut like a blade. "Ryan, enough." "No!"
Ryan shouted, his voice cracking but refusing to break.
"Not enough. Not anymore. I'm done living as your shadow. I'm done being a name instead of a person." Edward rose from his chair.
He was tall, broad-shouldered, his presence filling the room like a storm cloud. His voice rumbled low, dangerous. "You walk in here in the middle of the night, spouting dramatics like a child, and you think that makes you a man. Responsibility isn't about what you feel.
"It's about what you owe." Ryan's throat tightened.
His eyes burned. "But he stood his ground. What I owe is to myself. And I've been burying that under your expectations for too long." Edward's jaw flexed. He stepped around the desk, coming closer. You don't know what it takes to carry this family, to build an empire. Everything you have, the clothes on your back, the food you eat, exists because I carried the weight you couldn't even lift." Ryan's voice wavered, but didn't fall. "And what did it cost you? Do you even know who I am? Do you even care? Or am I just another asset in your empire?" Edward stopped just feet away. His face was hard, unreadable. "You are my son." Ryan shook his head, tears streaking his face. "No, I'm your project, your legacy, your heir, but never just your son." The silence that followed was suffocating. Edward's eyes flickered, something sharp, something almost wounded, but his mask didn't crack. Ryan pressed on, voice trembling. "I can't do it anymore.
I can't keep living for you.
If that means you cut me off, if that means I lose everything, fine. But at least it'll be my choice. Mine, not yours." His words spilled into the quiet, raw, and bare. Edward stared at him. His breathing had grown heavier, though his face remained hard as stone. He spoke slowly, each word deliberate. "You think walking away from this life makes you free? It makes you weak. Do you know how many men would kill for the chance you're throwing away?" Ryan swallowed, his body trembling, but he forced the words out anyway. "I don't care what other men would kill for."
I just want to live as myself." The finality of it settled in the room like thunder after lightning. Edward's eyes bored into him, searching, dissecting, weighing.
For a long, heavy moment, neither spoke. Ryan felt his chest cave under the silence, but he didn't back down.
His fists stayed tight, his feet planted.
For once he wasn't running. Finally Edward exhaled slowly, almost like a sigh. He turned away, walking back toward his desk. "You're not ready," he muttered.
"You're still a boy playing at rebellion." Ryan's heart dropped.
But then Edward's voice came again, lower, almost reluctant. "Yet, for the first time tonight, you sound like a man." Ryan froze, the words sinking deep. He didn't know if it was approval or dismissal, pride or warning.
Maybe both. Edward sank back into his chair, eyes sharp as ever. "You want to prove yourself?"
"Then prove it. Stop whining about shadows and start building something of your own."
"Until then, you're nothing but words." Ryan's lips parted, his chest heaving.
But he didn't argue. For once he didn't need to. He'd said what he came to say. He turned, walked to the door, his legs shaky but steady. His hand rested on the knob for a moment. He glanced back. His father sat behind the desk, already reaching for his pen again. The city lights glimmering behind him. For a moment, Ryan saw the man not as a god, not as an empire, but as what he truly was: human, flawed, hardened, alone. Then Ryan opened the door and stepped back into the hallway. The lobby was waiting. Sam was waiting. Ryan walked slowly down the glass corridor, his chest heavy but unbroken. His reflection followed him in the darkened windows, taller now, sharper, no longer swallowed by the shadow at his back. When he pushed the lobby door open, Sam looked up from his chair. Their eyes met. And for the first time, Ryan didn't look like a boy pretending to be a man. He looked like someone who'd just stepped through fire and survived. The door to the lobby clicked shut behind him, sealing the echo of his father's voice in the hallway. Ryan stood still for a moment, chest heaving, the silence wrapping around him like a cold blanket. His hands trembled at his sides. The adrenaline that had carried him into the fire was gone, leaving exhaustion in its place. Sam sat where Ryan had left him, hunched slightly forward, elbows on his knees, his mop leaning against the wall beside him. His eyes lifted when Ryan stepped into the light. For a long moment, neither spoke. Then Sam asked quietly, "Well?" Ryan let out a sound halfway between a laugh and a sob. He dropped heavily into the chair opposite, dragging both hands down his face. He didn't break. He didn't bend.
He didn't give me what I wanted." Sam's brow furrowed. "And what did you want?"
Ryan swallowed, staring at the floor. His voice cracked. "For once, for him to look at me."
"Not the air." Not the shadow.
Just me. The admission broke something loose. His shoulders shook, his breath catching. He clenched his fists tight against his knees, trying to hold himself together. Sam leaned back slowly, eyes steady on him. "And what did you get?" Ryan lifted his head. His eyes were red, his cheeks streaked with tears. His voice was hoarse but steady. He said I sounded like a man. But then he called me nothing but words. Sam nodded once, as if he'd expected that. And how did it feel to finally say them?
The words you've been choking on all these years. Ryan froze.
His chest tightened. Then slowly he exhaled, terrifying. His lips curved into a small, shaky smile, but also freeing, like I was finally breathing for the first time. Sam's face softened, though he didn't smile. His voice came low, weighted. That's what truth does. Cuts sharp, burns deep, but it clears the air so you can finally breathe. Ryan leaned back, staring at the chandelier above them. His heart still pounded, but not with panic anymore, with something steadier. Something close to resolve. He's never going to change, is he? Sam was quiet for a long time. When he answered, it was simple. Maybe, maybe not. But that's not your fight anymore. The only change you control is your own. Ryan let that sink in. His throat ached, but he nodded slowly. The lobby was still. Outside, the first faint light of dawn crept into the sky, softening the edges of the glass doors. Ryan whispered, almost to himself, "I don't know if I can do this."
Live without all of it.
The money, the comfort, him. Sam's eyes stayed fixed on him. You can. 'Cause what you found tonight is worth more than all of it. You found your voice. Ryan's lips trembled, but this time he didn't cry. He looked at Sam, truly looked at him, and saw not just a janitor, but a man carved by loss, hardened by regret, still standing. "Did you ever tell him?" Ryan asked suddenly. Sam frowned.
Tell who?
"Your son, Daniel. Did you ever tell him what he meant to you before he left?" The question landed like a stone in Sam's chest. His jaw tightened.
His gaze fell to the floor. No, not the way I should have. I thought he knew.
Thought he didn't need to hear it. I was wrong. Ryan studied him, then whispered, "So you're telling me not to make the same mistake?" Sam's eyes lifted, wet with something raw. He gave a single nod. Yes. The silence between them carried more weight than words ever could. Finally, Ryan leaned forward, elbows on his knees, mimicking the posture Sam had held all night.
His voice came quiet but steady. So what now? I walk out of here and... What, just start over?
Sam tilted his head, considering. Then he said, "You start small.
One step at a time. A job. A choice.
A life you build with your own hands, not his. You don't need to know the whole road yet. Just the next step." Ryan let out a shaky laugh.
And if I fall?
Sam's lips pressed into the faintest smile. "Then you stand back up."
Falling doesn't make you weak.
"Staying down does." The words settled into Ryan's chest like embers, glowing faintly but real. The light through the glass doors grew brighter, streaking the lobby floor in pale gold. The world outside was waking, but inside, the night still clung to them. Ryan sat in silence, letting the dawn creep across his face. Finally, he whispered, "I'm scared." Sam nodded. "Good. Fear means it matters." Ryan looked at him, studying the lines in his face, the wear in his hands, the grief behind his eyes, and for the first time he felt something he hadn't before, respect. Not the kind forced by titles or money, but the kind earned in silence, in scars, in truth. He breathed deeply, as if drawing strength from that respect. Then he said, "Thank you." Sam's gaze softened. He nodded once, not as a teacher, but as a man receiving a gift he hadn't expected. "You don't owe me thanks. Just don't waste what you found tonight." Ryan sat back, the weight in his chest lighter now. Outside, the sun began to lift fully, spilling light across the city skyline. The marble floors of the lobby glowed under the morning, the streaks of dried mop water catching the light like veins of silver. Ryan rose to his feet. His legs were steady this time. He turned to Sam, voice quiet but firm. "I don't know where I'm going, but I know I can't stay where I've been." Sam stood as well. He gripped the mop, leaning on it like a staff, his eyes steady. "That's all that matters." "Forward." Ryan nodded. He moved toward the glass doors, each step carrying the weight of choice and the spark of something new. He paused with his hand on the handle, glancing back one last time. Sam gave him a small nod. A silent blessing. Ryan pushed the door open. The morning air rushed in, cool, sharp, alive. He stepped out into it, letting the light wash over him. Back inside, Sam stood alone in the empty lobby. The mop in his hand, the streaked floor at his feet, the silence of a night almost over. He closed his eyes. For the first time in years, he felt something stir in his chest.
Not grief, not regret.
But hope. Maybe he hadn't saved Daniel. But maybe tonight he'd saved someone else, and maybe that was enough. The city was already stirring when Ryan stepped out onto the street. Car horns, the hiss of buses, the shuffle of hurried footsteps. All of it felt louder, sharper, as if the world itself had shifted in the hours between midnight and dawn. He squinted against the light, inhaling the cool morning air. For the first time in years, he wasn't surrounded by leather seats, tinted glass, or bodyguards trailing at his side.
He was just alone.
Alone, and yet not empty. The echoes of his father's voice still clung to him, heavy as chains. But somewhere beneath the weight was something else, something that felt strangely like freedom. Inside, Sam stood at the lobby doors, watching Ryan move into the daylight. He stayed there, leaning on his mop, until the boy vanished into the stream of people on the sidewalk. Only then did he turn back, staring at the vast, gleaming lobby that stretched before him. He had polished these floors for 15 years. He had mopped away footsteps that belonged to men in suits, women with power heels clicking sharp against the marble, children trailing behind nannies. But this morning, for the first time, the shine on the floor didn't matter. What mattered was that someone had finally walked across it carrying more than entitlement. Someone had left lighter than when they'd come in. Sam let out a slow breath. His chest still ached, but the ache felt different now. Not the searing pain of regret, but the dull, steady throb of healing. Ryan wandered. His feet took him down streets he didn't know, past storefronts rolling open, past vendors brewing coffee strong enough to perfume the air. His stomach growled, but he ignored it, clutching his jacket tighter around him. Every step away from that glass tower felt unreal. He had walked out of buildings like that 1,000 times before, chauffeured cars waiting, people nodding their heads in deference. But today, when the doors shut behind him, it felt final. A severing. He stopped outside a cafe, staring at the blackboard menu chalked with uneven letters. Something tugged at him. He reached into his pocket out of habit, searching for his wallet, only to find nothing. The realization stung. He had walked away with no money, no plan, no anchor. His throat tightened. He leaned against the brick wall, closing his eyes. Doubt rushed in. What if Sam was wrong? What if he couldn't make it on his own? But then he heard Sam's voice in his mind. Falling doesn't make you weak. Staying down does. Ryan opened his eyes. He straightened, pulling in a breath of coffee-scented air.
Maybe he couldn't buy a cup this morning.
But maybe tomorrow, if he found work, if he tried, and that was enough. He pushed away from the wall and kept walking. Back at the building, Sam moved through his routine, though slower than usual. He wrung out the mop, stored it in the closet, and sat heavily on the small wooden stool tucked inside. The smell of cleaning solution clung to him. His back ached, same as always. But he couldn't shake the image of Ryan's face, angry, broken, and then finally free. Sam rubbed his hands together, rough palms scratching like sandpaper. Daniel's face rose in his mind, unbidden. The last night they'd spoken, the slammed door, the silence that stretched for years. He would never get that night back, never get the chance to tell his son the words he'd buried deep inside. But maybe he could live differently now. Maybe he could take the lesson he had tried to give Ryan and turn it on himself. Sam stood, closing the closet door, his reflection caught in the stainless steel panel beside it. A tired man, an old man, but a man not yet finished. He whispered, barely audible, "I'm sorry, son."
I'm still here, and I'm still trying. Then he picked up the mop and went back to work. Not because the floor demanded it, but because it gave his hands purpose while his heart healed. Ryan walked until his legs ached.
He found himself at the edge of the park, sunlight scattering across dew-wet grass. He sank onto a bench, running his hands through his hair, letting the quiet settle around him. Children laughed somewhere in the distance. Joggers' shoes slapped against the path. Life went on, indifferent to the storm that had torn through him the night before. But he didn't feel invisible anymore. He felt present. He sat there a long time, watching the city wake. And for the first time in years, he wasn't waiting for someone to tell him what to do. The silence wasn't empty, it was full of possibility. His phone buzzed in his pocket. He pulled it out.
A single message blinked on the screen. From Dad. Ryan stared at it.
His thumb hovered. His chest tightened. The message read only 2 words. "Call me." Ryan's hand shook. For a moment he wanted to hurl the phone into the grass, let it disappear forever. But then Sam's face came back to him, the weight in his voice when he admitted he'd never told Daniel how he felt. Ryan's throat closed. He typed one sentence back, "Not today." He locked the phone, slipped it back into his pocket, and leaned against the bench.
His chest still hurt.
But there was clarity in that hurt. He wasn't ready to go back. But maybe one day, on his terms, not his father's. As the morning wore on, Ryan stood and walked again. The city no longer felt like a cage, it felt like a canvas. Terrifying blank, but waiting, and somewhere behind him, in a silent lobby still smelling faintly of bleach and steel, a janitor pushed his mop across the floor, a small smile touching the corners of his mouth. 2 men, worlds apart, bound now by a night of truth neither would forget. When night fell again, the tower lights glowed against the skyline, but Ryan wasn't there. He was somewhere else, maybe in a diner washing dishes, maybe in a room with peeling paint, maybe on a street corner searching for work. But wherever he was, he carried something new inside him. Not wealth,
not power,
but the voice he'd fought so hard to claim. And Sam, polishing the floors under that endless chandelier, felt lighter. The building was still the same, the work still endless, but the weight inside him was different.
Less grief,
more grace. He looked up at the glittering light and whispered again, this time without sorrow, "I'm still here, son."
And I'll keep trying. The story of that night didn't make headlines.
No one in the city knew what had passed in the quiet hours between a janitor and a CEO's son. But some stories don't need headlines. They live in the marrow of those who lived them, shaping every step that follows. And for Ryan, every step forward from that dawn carried the echo of Sam's voice, the lesson carved into him like stone. Fall, stand, speak, live. The boy who entered the lobby in fury and despair was not the same one who left in the dawn, and the janitor, who carried his own regrets, had, at last, given them purpose. Together they had rewritten the night into something that mattered, something neither of them would ever forget.